Hello, this is Cook County Commissioner Donna Miller. Welcome to our 1 p.m. virtual town hall. We're going to get started in just a minute. So going to get some time for the audience to build up. And then we'll get started with some introductions and get into our topic for today. We're going to get started in just a minute, so just please bear with us. And for our panelists, I'm going to mute your microphone right now. You also have the opportunity to mute it yourself, but you can't mute it if I mute it, just so you know.
So you mute it.
I forgot to tell you that. Okay. So hello, everyone. I'm going to get started just so we can be conscious of time. I want to welcome you to our virtual town hall series focused on COVID-19 in the Southland. And although we say we're focused on the Southland, many of these topics and speakers' expertise apply beyond just the Southland. Today's topic is so important. It's on mental health, addiction, and spirituality. So before I get started, I did want to cover some data with you. First, for those who don't know, I'm Cook County Commissioner Donna Miller. I'm of the 6th District, and that includes 36 municipalities in the south suburbs. For those who also may not be aware, Cook County is the 2nd largest county in the entire country, and it's located outside of the city of Chicago. So the reason for our discussion today is on mental health, addiction, and spirituality is because the pandemic that we're in right now, it affects people in many different ways. I will remind you of the data that we have related to COVID-19. And the number of cases in Illinois is 58,505 cases. And we have had, unfortunately, 2,559 deaths in Illinois. Now, since we're focused on the Southland, I want to extrapolate the numbers as it relates to Southern Cook County or suburban Cook County. So all of the suburbs, that's everything outside of Chicago. The number of cases are 16,356, and unfortunately, 632 deaths. As we've heard many updates from Governor Pritzker, who's been doing a great job of keeping us informed, explaining the reasons why we have extended this stay-at-home order, and it is to keep us all. So I just want to reiterate that it's important for us to stay home, stay safe, wear a mask, because that was instituted starting on May 1st. And we know that people are out without masks. We protect ourselves. We must really be diligent in that. So the unfortunate thing too about these numbers that I just do is that the magnitude of these numbers is really difficult for some people to deal with. So that is why we are so fortunate to have an expert panel here today to share their expertise on the subject matter at hand. So I'll just introduce each person and then I'm going to let them speak. So first we have Felicia Houston, who is Behavior Health Community Development Liaison for University of Chicago at Ingalls Hospital. Brian Hazard is the Vice President of Clinical Services at South Suburban Council. We have Jen McGowan Tumiki, who's Associate Director of NAMI Chicago. George Barassi, who is the owner of True Heights Treatment in Chicago Heights. And we also have evangelist Grace Little Hinton of Monument of Faith Church. So I'd like for each one of them to go through and introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what you do, how the pandemic has changed in your practice or what you normally do, and just give us a little insight from your perspective. So first, I would like to have Felicia speak, and she can introduce herself again. Thank you, Felicia, and thank you all so much for being here.
Okay, well, thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you, Commissioner Donna Miller, for this opportunity. It's interesting because when I watched your live last week, I was like, it would be a great idea to do one of these on mental health. And then I received that text from you, and I was like, see, we were thinking along the same lines. So thank you so much for this opportunity. So I'll just give a little bit about myself. My name is Felicia Houston, and I'm with U Chicago Medicine at Ingalls. I'm with the Department of Psychiatry. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor with more than 20 years of experience. And my job is to go out into the community and educate the community in regards to mental health concerns. And I specifically focus on the South suburbs. How the pandemic has affected us. We provide services, first of all, for adolescents ages 12 to 17, as well as adults and older adults. Since the pandemic, we made the decision to close our adolescent inpatient unit because adolescence and social distancing just don't go together. So we made a decision to close our inpatient unit, but we're still providing outpatient services. The pandemic has affected us because now we're doing everything virtually. So when people call and they need assessments, we're doing them virtually. If someone presents with COVID symptoms and then they need a psychiatric evaluation, that is done virtually. So we're still doing groups virtually. We're doing individual counseling virtually. And so everything we've had to shift. But even coming into the hospital has shifted. So we can no longer just walk into the building. You have to stand in a line and you have to get your temperature checked. You have to get a new mask. You have to get new gloves. So I would say during this pandemic, this is the first time I think that everyone is on the same playing field, because I think everyone is experiencing some level of anxiety with this pandemic because nobody knows. Like, we're all experiencing that high level of uncertainty. Like, we don't know what to expect today, and we don't know what to expect tomorrow, next week, or at the end of this month. So we continue to do the work that we're here to do, but we just had to change. So like we have therapists who had never used Zoom before. So we had to get a corporate Zoom account and things of that sort. So it just required us to just have a different mindset in regards to providing quality services for our clients and patients.
Well, thanks, Lisa. We're going to move on to Brian. Brian, can you just take a moment to introduce yourself and tell us about the services you provide?
Absolutely. My name is Brian Hazard. I'm the Vice President of Clinical Services here at the South Suburban Council on Alcoholism and Substance Abuse. The council has been a residential treatment facility here in the South Suburbs for over 45 years, and we continue to provide both outpatient and residential substance use disorder services specifically to the residents of Cook County. We're located in East Hazel Crest, and we are committed to continuing to provide those services to individuals who are low income and local in order to be able to address the services that are desperately needed by the Cook County area in regards to the opioid epidemic that continues to ravage our community, in addition to all of the other alcohol and substance use disorder services that are required. We also provide mental health services, and we continue to ramp up our efforts to do that. Again, this is a sorely needed service in our community, and now we are trying to do both of those things in consideration of the coronavirus and all of the challenges that sort of are brought to light as a result of the situation that we find ourselves in right now.
Well, thank you, Brian. So next we'll go to Jen. Let me, hold on one sec. So Jen, please just take a moment and tell us about your organization and some of the resources you have available.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Commissioner Miller. I'm so happy to be here with you all today, virtually. I'm Jen McGowan-Tomke. I'm the Associate Director at NAMI Chicago. We are the Chicago affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is an organization, our specific organization in Chicago. We work with individuals in the Chicagoland area, supporting people living with mental health conditions, supporting family members, supporting professionals that are engaged in the mental health system, with really the goal of providing connection and hope and resources to individuals who may need that related to their mental health and wellness. So we do that in a variety of ways. We do that through our helpline that we run at NAMI Chicago, which is open 7 days a week to support individuals who are navigating the mental health system, are experiencing mental health stressors that they want to talk through with someone, that are supporting a loved one that they care about in trying to connect to care. So we do a variety of things on our helpline, but we primarily do that by meeting people where they are, identifying what's going on, and trying to build resources and supports around them using the strengths that they already have. And so again, we're open 7 days a week on our helpline, not 24/7, but from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. during the week and 9 to 5 on Saturdays and Sundays, because we know folks need to connect at all times throughout the week. I would just say on our helpline, we have experienced an increase in our calls during this COVID-19 crisis. In January, we took around 600 calls, and in April, we took almost 1,500 calls. So folks are reaching out, and that's one of the themes that I'm hoping to share today, is that we are feeling uncertainty, we're feeling disconnected, we're feeling extreme change in what's going on as we navigate this crisis together. But there are ways to reach out, and that connectedness is so crucially important. And we're hearing from folks, and we want to hear from whoever may benefit from connecting with us. So I think that that's a really important theme of what's going on, that we may be socially distant from each other, but we don't need to be isolated. We can be connected. And the folks that are reaching out to our helpline are showing that every day, and that strength is so inspiring. One of the other things that we're providing in this virtual world is peer support and family support groups. We're running groups every day of the week for individuals who want to share what's going on with them and connect with other people who are experiencing similar stressors. We are running groups for family members who are supporting loved ones right now, and potentially seeing an increase of uncertainty and stress in that loved one's life, and for ourselves as well, to provide that opportunity to connect person to person over a virtual platform. And then we're also hosting healthcare specific support groups. So for folks working as first responders or in the healthcare workforce who are seeing a different level of stress, a different level of anxiety, a different level of seriousness of what's going on in their lives, we want to offer the opportunity for them to connect as well and feel supported. So we're offering 3 support groups a week for healthcare workers or frontline staff. So I'm so grateful to be here and to share these resources and the resources of the other panelists here today, and just want to note that we're all experiencing something that we've never experienced before, and that really impacts our own mental wellness in a lot of ways, regardless of whether we've struggled or experienced mental health challenges in the past. And this is a new and unprecedented time, and we're in this together. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jen. So important. Okay, so next, George, I'd like for you to just tell a little bit about your practice and maybe some of the things you've seen that might be a little bit different.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. My name is George Brassey. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor, and I'm the owner of True Heights Treatment, which is located in the 6th District, proudly in Chicago Heights. Since the COVID-19 pandemic has occurred, I've seen an uptick in the number of employee assistance program referrals my practice has seen. And I've also seen an uptick in workplace stress anxiety, and as well as marital conflict in my clients' lives. In addition to those increases, I've also had to transition entirely to telehealth, and that has been a challenge initially, but I'm much more comfortable doing it now than I was when I first started. And I'm seeing all my clients in telehealth now, and it has its own unique challenges and opportunities. One of the EAP companies I work closely with has a number of accounts in central and southern Illinois, so I'm getting more people from rural populations who would have never sought out therapy or counseling before coming in now through their EAPs as a result of COVID. And with telehealth, just being in the same state allows me to work with that person, which is a whole different experience that I didn't see coming. So with that said, I look forward to sharing things about my practice, and we're talking to my colleagues on the panel.
Thank you, George. And so now we'll have Grace, Evangelist Grace Little Hinton. Please just tell us about the spirituality part, Grace.
Yes, hi. First, thank you, Commissioner Donna Miller, for having me. This is a great opportunity. I am so excited that you're doing this. It's very important. I'm also the first lady of Monument of Faith. My husband is Pastor Mark Hinton. We have about 65 churches up under us. We have a mega church in Chicago, but like I said, we have 65 churches domestically up under us, and about 40 churches in South Africa and 90 up under us in Nigeria. We're dealing with this head on. This is unbelievable because we're dealing with the sick. In the Black African American community, it's hitting us hard. We're dealing with not only the sick parishioners, but also their relatives. So they're calling us constantly, and then the death after death after death. So then depression, anxiety. We have a bishop who's really head of over our regional, for the West region, shall I say, who passed away 3 weeks ago. His wife is sick and his daughters are sick. No one can come and hug them. So we're dealing with that, where when you lose someone, no one can comfort you, but via phone, by Skyping, so you're dealing with that. And then their congregation. What are we going to do with that congregation? How are we going to heal them? And then the funeral home, we're dealing with the funeral directors. The hospital, people are used to their pastor or elders coming to the hospital to see them, their loved ones. We can't get to the hospital now because it's not safe. So we have to constantly build them up, motivate them, pray with them. So it's really being on the front line at all times. And then you're talking about, I just got off the phone with a lady who lost her son with suicide 3 years ago. She was actually beginning to cope, been in counseling, professional counseling, and now being cooped up and the shut in. Her thoughts are coming. Before she was coping, she's not coping anymore. So she's just needing to be built up. So we're getting those type of calls on a regular. So what do we do with that? We have to build them up. We have to pray. We have to show them how to connect to their power source. And while they're getting professional help, while they're seeing the panelists, someone on one of the panelists, we are also like, let's build you up. Let's motivate you. How do we get hope back into you? We don't want you to commit suicide. We don't want you to lose out. So that's what we're dealing with. So I appreciate you having this. And later I will talk more about how we're doing this. And so thank you.
Thank you, Grace. So I'm just going to ask all of you, and we'll just go back in order. Why don't you tell us some unique challenges you're facing? All of you mentioned not being able to be physically with your clients or your parishioners or with people who you normally would talk to person, and gone to a virtual environment. Why don't you talk about something that people might be surprised to know, outside of just the increase in people seeking mental health and addiction services, the need for more talking or connection with their pastors, what else is affecting people? Because I hear so many people just in groups that I'm in, people are sad, profoundly sad, because they don't know what to do. People are feeling like they don't want to leave their house ever because they don't know how to properly protect themselves, or they don't know if they should go to the store. So what kind of conversations are you having? How are you helping people in these ways? And the increase, I think, is really important for us to acknowledge, especially for people who might think they're the only one. In one of the groups I'm in, someone said that. She said, "Oh, I feel so glad to be connected with people now because I thought I was the only person who felt this way, and to other people, but other people are doing things like exercising or cooking or reading or journaling, doing other things to build themselves back up, but they need those resources." So Felicia, can you talk a little bit about maybe what some resources are, any anecdotal story of things that you've had happen in this short period of time that have been, transformative?
Yes, thank you. I would say what I have tried to focus on this time during this time is to give people some hope, because you're right, a lot of people feel hopeless. And so what I've been trying to get people to look at is what are you going to take away from this experience? And so like a lot of the school districts and different companies that would usually bring me in to do an actual workshop, we've been doing virtual workshops, and I'm just trying to help them to figure out how can you minimize your stress during this time? What are some new things that you can learn during this? Are there some new skills that you can take? So like a lot of the school district with the social workers and the counselors doing the e-learning, I'm like, okay, so can you learn, what are you learning from this? What are some new platforms that you've been introduced? So like some of them were like, we don't understand Zoom, and so my thing is, okay, I'm going to send you a link. It's a tutorial, and this can help to alleviate some of the stress. Now you understand how do you do a Zoom? What are the best tips, to do this? This is another platform, StreamYard. I used this a couple of times last week. So just sharing any resources that I get, I make sure that I share it with all of the people that I do work with so that it can help them in some type of way. The other thing I think that I've been doing is just trying to normalize it, that what you're feeling is normal and you're not alone. I think this is the first time, like I said, as a licensed person, we all experience some type of anxiety. Every time when I go into the hospital, I experience some anxiety, having to put that mask on. One lady came in my office one day and she sneezed, and I thought I was going into cardiac arrest. And we both had on masks, but it's like, why are you sneezing in my office? Like, sneeze outside. So just normalizing it and letting people know that I experience going to the grocery store increases my anxiety. So I've been introduced to Instacart, and I share their information with people. Like I live in one area, my other friend lives in another area. We barter. I'm like, hey, I need this. Can you see if it's in your area? And she needs this. And then I get something for her. She gets something for me. And we meet up and do a virtual exchange, social distance exchange. And so just trying to share with people any resources that I have. I'm in a lot of groups where we're working out together. We're doing challenges. We're learning about new dances. I think on Wednesday, we are doing a wine tasting with John Legend. I don't know how, but he's connected with some wine company, and everybody's got the wine, and we're going to do this wine tasting with John Legend. So trying to make the best out of this situation is what I've been trying to do, is just to share any resources that I have and encourage people to do the same.
So Felicia, anything that someone's mentioned that you were really surprised by or caught you off guard from a therapist standpoint?
I would say, and I think Grace was talking about the funeral home. So we lost an aunt to COVID-19. And what was interesting is that the hospital said that she had to be cremated. And so for a lot of people, I'm hearing that from a lot of people, that if someone dies from COVID-19, they have to be cremated. And I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. So I think a lot of people are real. Okay, Grace is saying, no, that's not true. So thank you, Grace. But a lot of people are not taking that in very well, especially in the African-American community, because like a funeral is a big deal in African American community. So to not be able to have that funeral, I was shocked by that a lot of people were saying they weren't able to have a funeral for their loved ones to say their proper goodbyes. So and then you're grieving, how you're trying to grieve, but you never even got a chance to say goodbye. So I think for me that was something that was alarming to me, that some people are telling people that if they have COVID-19 they have to be cremated.
Well, we will get the right answer on that when we get to Grace. Okay.
Thank you.
Whether or not that is a must, because that could be a misconception.
Yes.
Or it could be something in certain areas they're telling that's not true.
Exactly.
So, Brian, why don't you talk a little bit, if you could tell us about your services and maybe something that you've seen that's surprising, especially from the addiction standpoint. I think that's surprising. Grace touched on it a little bit, Felicia, that people are isolated. And so when they're isolated, they're more vulnerable. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that and the increase in numbers that you might have seen.
Sure. So the first and foremost challenge for us is, like so many other agencies, we switched our outpatient over to a telehealth system and have been using the Zoom platform quite a bit, as well as doing individual individual phone call services with people. For our residential services, the challenge is figuring out how to provide those services in a safe and effective way for people who are living with us in the building and don't have somewhere to shelter in place. They can't leave. They don't have a home to go to per se. And we have, we discontinued our residential admissions a few weeks ago and are still in the works of trying to plan how to reopen those admissions to people coming from hospitals, because we want to be able to provide the service, but also make sure that we're being safe. There's a lot of challenges, obviously, with trying to make a residential treatment center safe in the middle of a pandemic like this. And there's been a lot of challenges by other agencies trying to do the same thing. So that's been, for us, probably the most unique challenge. It's scary. It's very scary times for everybody, I think. And one of the things that we've always really reinforced to our patients and to the individuals that we work with is to be very careful about where they're getting their information from. And that despite, I think, Facebook's best efforts, it's usually best. There's a lot of fatigue people are experiencing now, a social media fatigue from the constant discussion of coronavirus, and a lot of iffy information that sort of comes from there. And when there's so much of that, people begin to lose faith in what they can and can't believe, and what they should and shouldn't listen to, and who they can trust for information. So really making an emphasis on ensuring that people are trying to get their information from reliable sources, and to maybe cut off that stream of social media where those opinions can, really become overwhelming. We were surprised, actually, when we switched over to doing Zoom as a platform for our outpatient. We suspected we wouldn't get a lot of buy-in from the patients that were switching from outpatient groups. I think what we hadn't considered is how closed in and shut off people feel in their homes. We had a resounding response. It's been successful. A lot of people, they really just want to have human contact. They want to have something to do. So where we were thinking, gosh, it would be great if we can get a dozen people, the numbers are twice that. And then we're looking at trying to expand the number of groups and the duration of the groups in order to provide the service to all the people who are calling in. We also suspect that the increase in outpatient demand is because there is a reduced number of residential services that are available. Even the agencies that have continued to run their residential programs have reduced the amount of people they're able to serve in order to provide for the ability to do social distancing within their units. So if someone was usually having 3 patients in a residential treatment room, they may be doing 1 or 2 now, which cuts down on the availability. You mentioned what have we seen as far as a big increase. The number of relapses that are happening right now for people who especially are in early recovery, we're seeing a really big increase, just like we're seeing, I think others who work in the mental health field will agree, that there's increased anxiety, increased stress. So all of those symptomatic issues are coming up. relapse has become something that's pretty substantial, and that's being seen not only by the treatment field, but also it's being voiced as a concern by those that are in the support group communities, the 12-step fellowships, smart recovery, and that sort of thing have also indicated that it's very hard for someone to try to get clean right now, because one of the biggest foundational aspects of getting clean is the social structure, to making new connections, making new relationships. And for example, if it was a 12-step meeting, they'd be going to meetings and finding a sponsor. If it was Celebrate Recovery, which is an example of a 12-step group that is frequently run out of Christian communities, they would be able to go in and meet with someone in the church who would connect them with that. So they don't have that right now, and it makes it very difficult for people to be able to maintain that early sobriety and recovery. So I think that's kind of the biggest challenges that we're seeing, is how can we responsibly provide residential services, and what it's like for people who are trying to stay clean. It's natural, I think, as a community for us to really have our eye on coronavirus right now. But I also think it's important not to forget that places like the council, places like Gateway and Haymarket and other residential treatment centers can't necessarily, people are still dying from overdose. Opioid overdose and addiction is still very much a serious thing that needs our attention and services, and doesn't become less dangerous simply because coronavirus is here. So it's not a matter of one or the other. We either close down and then everybody feels safe. We have to find a way to continue to provide services to a population that is now in more need of those services than ever.
Brian, that is an excellent point that honestly I can say I had not heard until we talked, because we just don't hear it in the news right now about people who are in recovery and what that looks like. So what do you think we could do as regular people, to help? What could we do?
One of the things I think is making sure that people are aware of the services that are available online. I have heard people who aren't in the mental health field refer to mental health services or substance use disorder services as just being closed right now, which is just wrong. Most places have not closed services. They've mostly moved online, and there is success there. There are links available for both of the, AA and NA are probably the largest of the 12-step groups, but also Smart Recovery, which is a 12-step alternative. All of those have available, they've largely gone to online and continue to function. And I think, they've gotten past the early growing pains of Zoom bombing and the challenges that came along with that. So those services are available. So making sure people know that that's available, but also reaching out to people that that are experiencing substance use disorder. If you have a family or loved one who in the past has struggled, even if they were clean the last time you talked to them, they may be struggling with that very much right now. Because what a lot of people are discovering is that idea that now that we're all stuck in the house, there's all these things that I was always going to do, and now I'm going to do them. But if people were struggling with mental health issues that kept them from doing those things in the first place, those are still going to be struggles, and now there's nothing to distract them from that, similar to what Grace was saying. And so now everything seems a little more amplified. So they need that personal contact as much as possible. If it's a phone call, Zoom meeting, whatever the case may be. A lot of people don't know that Zoom is free. If you're just talking from person to person, you don't need to pay for an account. You can make a Zoom contact with someone at no cost for an unlimited amount of time. So that makes it very easy for people to do voice chat or video chat over their phones, especially people who are Android and not iPhone. I know iPhone has FaceTime, and people can do that very quickly. If somebody doesn't have the same brand phone, then something like Zoom does make it possible. I know I sound like an advertisement for Zoom right now, but it has been really a helpful platform for so many people. And so, kudos to them in that regard.
And no, it's good to know. I don't know if everyone knows that. And then when, you're talking from different platforms of phones, so it's important. So thank you, Brian. Sure. So next, Jen, why don't you talk about some of the other additional things that you've heard? I mean, that statistic that you gave us was very important to understand, that you had more calls on your hotline. And just to let people know that that's normal, that they can call and reach someone. So just tell us a little bit more about that. And you have to unmute yourself, Jen.
You got it. There we go. Yes, absolutely. So just to reiterate, I think that we are seeing a significant increase in folks who are reaching out. One, because they know we're available. So if there's, one thing we could ask folks to do, would be also spreading our helpline as a resource, along with the many other resources that have been described today. So folks know that there is a place to turn, like the many other organizations here today. But also, I think one of the things that our helpline is really doing right now, that's been talked about so far in this panel, is really normalizing the experience, right? So not only is it normal to want to connect and to want to reach out, it's also normal to be feeling all of the things that we're feeling right now in such unprecedented times. The uncertainty, the change, the anxiety, the irritability that we're feeling is all very normal for the experience that we're having, that is stressful, that's traumatic, that is impacting us in many, many ways. And so one of the things I wanted to mention, I think we've been talking a little bit about what can we do ourselves, and a lot of the things I'm hearing really fit into this idea that our mental wellness is really not just dependent on our ability to engage in therapy, although that's very important. Our mental wellness is a product of our health, how we're eating, how we're sleeping, how we're exercising. It's a product of us feeling purposeful, right? So for folks who are disconnected from work right now, if that was a major source of purpose for them, that is a deficit. And finding other ways that we feel purposeful, like practicing gratitude, practicing mindfulness, thinking about what gives us meaning, is a really important component that we need to build up, right? It's not just the connection with it's not just the connection with a specific treatment model or a specific friend group. It's also feeling that those things that give us purpose for ourselves. But of course, community is a huge important piece of this as well. So whether it's connecting with one of the peer support groups or other virtual groups, whether it's being on Facebook today and hearing this discussion and feeling a connection with us, whether it's sharing groceries with a friend, right, to make sure everyone has what they need, or reaching out to our faith community if we need support. All of these things together really make up our mental wellness. And I think that that's one of the things that I take away from our experience on the helpline, is that we're talking about all of these pieces coming together to address the stress and anxiety that we're feeling. Of course, I think one important thing to note is that there are so many basic needs that need to be met at this moment in time, where we typically on our helpline did a lot of support and connection to mental health and substance use agencies like those here. What we're doing a lot of is trying to help people find food, trying to help people find housing, trying to help people make sure they're getting their unemployment benefits, right? Because there is a basic level of needs that we have to meet in order to address some of the other things that are going on in our lives. So, I think that it's important that we think about what this next phase in the COVID-19 response looks like. What does reentry look like? What are people going to need? What are they going to be fearful of moving forward? And what are sort of the safety net services that we have to make sure are available to people, in addition to the mental health and substance use and emotional support that we're providing, right? Move forward and move out of this, I think we need to spend a lot of time thinking about what does reentry and what does emerging into the world look like. And there are going to be ongoing needs for people related to sort of all of these things here. So just to swing back to a hopeful note, we're hearing people talk about their strengths. We're working with people to identify the support networks that they have in place. We know that sometimes we just need a listening ear, sometimes we need a little encouragement, or sometimes we need some direction. And that is what we can help provide, and what the providers here on the panel today can also provide.
Okay. So George, I just wanted to go and talk a little bit about what you mentioned that people might not have thought of. You mentioned EAP, so that's your Employee Assistance Program, and that's through your insurance. Maybe you could explain that a little bit. And then you said you've gotten an increase in calls on that as well. So that might be something, another resource that some people may not thought of. And the reasons why you even mentioned, like in rural communities where they didn't, normally seek out any type of behavior health. Now they are. Maybe you could just tell us some of the reasons why you've heard people calling you now and how it's helpful.
Sure. So the Employee Assistance Program may or may not be the same health insurance vendor as your health insurance that your employee provides. A lot of times, major corporations or governments who employ a lot of people have a need to invest in their people. So the Employee Assistance Program usually is a separate benefit from the health insurance. And with most EAP sessions, the employer has an arrangement with a vendor where they can provide up to 6 or 7 free sessions to the employer, to the employee as a benefit of being an employee there. So usually the EAP is a great stepping stone into a person entering into a longer term relationship with a therapist. I'm also seeing an increase in EAP services from rural populations throughout the state of Illinois. It is a really nice benefit for people to have as their employers give them this benefit to invest in themselves. So I highly recommend people looking to their EAP benefits because almost everybody has them. Most major employers do.
What are some of the reasons people have sought out services at this time? In general, you don't have to be specific, but in general, they're calling you now when they hadn't called before. Yep. So what are they saying?
I think there's just a general sense of stress and anxiety out in the world right now, and it's impacting all of us, just like Jen had mentioned. And I've seen a major increase in the last 2 months in just referrals and clients in general. January and February are usually really hard months for therapists because everybody's deductibles have a tendency to reset, and then there's a little bit of a lull. But ever since COVID-19 really started to show up, more people are coming in using their EAP benefits because there's usually zero cost to the person coming in to use them. And cost is also oftentimes a big barrier for people coming in and getting therapy because it is therapy is not an inexpensive service to provide.
Right. Well, and I think what you mentioned, just by mentioning that, and it's a service and it's available to people, and it's just in general, it's not like some overwhelming thing that's making people call, but it's the in general anxiety and unknowing. And you've all touched on that in one way or another and how important that is. So Grace, I think the first thing we need to hear from you is just about these funeral homes and dispelling any myths. I do want to say that when I did one of these calls early on, we did it with physicians, and we heard the myth that drinking alcohol, excessive amounts of alcohol can kill coronavirus, and actual physicians were seeing uptake of patients coming to the hospital with alcohol poisoning or whatever it's called exactly. So we need to dispel myths out here for people so that they aren't taken advantage of or doing things to compromise their integrity or cause them physical harm like that does. So funeral homes, they're telling people to get cremated. Yeah. And that may or may not be true.
Not true at all, because we're doing funerals on a regular. They're just not grand and big, like Felicia said. In the African American community, we are used to having real funerals, like celebration of life is like off the chain. But they're encouraging cremation. Don't do it unless that's something that you really want to do. The funeral homes are backed up. Absolutely. I was just at Oakwood Cemetery. They're backed up. But you can, like the bishop that on the West Coast, he passed about 2.5 weeks ago. His service is not until May 16th, and he's not being cremated. So you don't have to be cremated. But that is something that I am going to talk to my husband about, and the pastors, we're going to get on top of that. So thank you, Felicia, for bringing that out, because we have heard it, but now we're hearing it more and more that is what they're telling, especially the African American community: cremate your loved one. You don't have to do that, which is actually making you have even more anxiety, as Felicia said. So no, not at all. So we're going to get on top of that. Thank you, Donna, for having. That's why this type of discussion, these type of discussions are very important. Yeah. And is it my turn? Because I want to talk.
Grace. So
yes, I want to talk about
yeah.
It's at an all-time high. Anxiety, stress, depression is at an all-time high. I had a pastor's wife to ask me. She's like, "Are you stressed out? What are you doing? How are you coping?" I said, "No, not at all. I'm not stressed at all." And the reason being is what we are telling people who do call, who we are in contact with. It is important to set time aside for God, connecting to your power source. I can't tell you how important that is. This is a time for resetting, to reset. My daughter said it best. She said, "Mommy, I think God is putting us on a timeout." I'm like, I've never thought about that. But if you have a timeout, then you have to sit and think, what can I do differently? What can I do to enhance myself? And one of the things for myself, and I've been telling others, I'm decluttering my home. I'm doing things that I'm taking time to do things that I haven't normally been doing. I canceled the cleaning lady because no one's coming in my home. So now I'm cleaning and decluttering. But then what do we do with that declutter? We also need to declutter our temple. This is our body. Declutter your mind, the mindset, declutter your heart. There may be things that you're holding on to that you need to let go, that hurt, pain, and mistreatment, all of those things. Let it go. This is a good time to reset. And I tell everyone, praise is your weapon. You got to praise your way through it. Push, P-U-S-H. Push until something happens. P is for push, U for until, something is for the S, and H is for happen. Push until something happened. And I think it was Felicia that talked about hope. Hope is the highest motivation. Hope, hope starts with the promises of God. So with the promise of God, that's your scriptures. Psalms 41, I believe, 41, 43, and 41 and 11. By this I know that the Lord favoreth me, and he won't let my enemy triumph over me. I speak that to everyone who calls. By this I know that the Lord favoreth me. They need to hear that. He favors you, and he won't let your enemy. Right now, the enemy is what? No job, coronavirus. It didn't say it wasn't going to come, but it won't triumph over me. You just got to speak that. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Speak it. Walk around the house while you're shut in, and just speak these things, these positive scriptures over your life. Another thing that and these are things that I just tell people: invite God into your home. Just invite him in and say, "God, I need you to come in and bring peace in my home, bring joy in my home, bring happiness, take away the anxiety, take away the depression." And you will feel happier. You'll start, and that's why I say praise is your weapon. Praise is your weapon, because the more you praise him, the goal is to get that person from defeat to victory. I need to get you from defeat to victory. How do I do that? Call Felicia. You're calling George. You're calling these people. But we need to all work together to get these people from defeat to victory. And that's by reiterating the hope, telling them about the scriptures. And I tell people, if you rearrange the word depression, you get, I press on. So press on. Don't let the problem around you become greater than what's in you. If you do, you will lose the perspective of what you want God to work through you. And that's 1 John 4:1. I throw scriptures out because that's what I do. Greater is he that's in me, that's in you, than he that is in the world. So when you're doing that, honestly, I have seen people at their lowest and they're like, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to press. I'm going to push. And I'm telling everyone, your title means nothing right now. People say, what's your title? My title is frontline. And everybody should be working towards being a frontline person. What can you do to make someone else happy? Go get groceries for the senior citizen. Drop it off at the door. One of the things that we have done at our church is pretty organized. And I encourage other churches to do this. And we are encouraging other churches that are not under us or affiliated with us to do this. We have a social services department. So you can call the church and we can connect you to the social services ministry, and they will help you with housing. They will help you with food. If you need food, we have food drives. But one of the main things we organize just before we close the church. We organize because we have a large church. We have captains. So we have leaders who are captains, and they may have like 50 people per captain. And they call people on a regular, checking on them. That person can call their captain. They can call us. I mean, we have a big church, but I'm one of those people that I'm the first lady, but I pick up the phone. But they have a captain that they can talk to. My mother's 84. And she has a captain. It's not me. She has someone, and she tells me, because I have a quarantine, because we have encouraged all the seniors to be quarantined at this time. If you need groceries, we have deacons that will drop them off. Your captain can drop the groceries off to you. And my mother would call me. She's like, you know what? My captain called me today. You know, I just got off the phone. It makes them happy. So you can be a captain. I tell everyone, you don't have to wait for your church to organize you to be a captain and be a frontline person. You become that frontline person. Drop the groceries off. There's a senior somewhere. You don't have to know them. It's just, you know, can I help you? Can I get the groceries? You stay in the house. And another thing, I was at Whole Foods. I saw the gentleman, he was an older man, and he was cleaning off the cart. He was cleaning off the carts for us to be safe. Now watch this. This is at Whole Foods. I got into Whole Foods and I see everyone. This is before the mandate of the face mask. Everyone had a face mask but him that was working. And when I came out, I said, where's your face mask? And he said, well, I think they may have run out. I'm not sure. I said, hold on. I have some in my car. And I came back out and I gave it to him. That is being on the front line, guys. And I just tell everyone, find yourself working, doing, because it's like people are used to singing in the choir. That keeps them happy. Singing hearing the voices in the choir makes them happy, especially those who have dealt with depression or dealing with depression. Well, now I'm closing this home. So now we're telling them, turn on your TV, turn on YouTube and get some tapes. We call them gospel. So if y'all don't know nothing about gospel, we tell them gospel. Get some gospel songs or get some any type of song and just start singing around your home. Our president of the choir, he's been contacting the choir members. Hey, you know what? Make a video of yourself singing. So the church is really, there's a lot we can do to help with depression, anxiety, bringing life into the home. So, but first you have to invite Jesus and God into your home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You definitely are speaking it into life.
Yes.
We only have a few minutes left. I'm going to let everybody go around and do a closing comment, but you guys have provided so much valuable information. And I think the biggest thing that you've all provided is some hope for people. So Felicia, do you have any closing remarks before we finish up here?
Okay. I would just say that to just everyone just be mindful that during this time, everyone is experiencing something unusual because we're in unusual times right now. And I think we didn't touch on this, but the suicide rate is at an all-time high as well. So if you feel like you need some help, if you know that you're not your normal self, reach out and get some help. Everyone has telehealth. Everyone has services available virtually. So reach out to us. I know that Christian has put most of our contact information in the chat and on the Facebook Live. So reach out to people and get the help that you need so that we don't have to read about a suicide. There was a suicide yesterday and it was live. So it's real. So, and everybody is experiencing some type of depression, but depression and suicide is connected. So when you don't get the treatment that you need, it can lead to suicide. So please get the help that you need. We're all here and we're all in this together, and we're trying to save lives by just addressing the situations that everyone is experiencing right now.
We're unable to hear you, Donna. Hey, yeah, I just wanted to sort of follow up with what Felicia was saying and encourage people to take advantages of the services that are out there. And I think that normalizing some of this anxiety is really important, right? It's okay to have the experience that we're having. I think we're supposed to, as social creatures, we're supposed to be experiencing this. And I think that it's only natural for us to feel weird when we're not able to connect with our other social creatures out there in the world. So making sure to take advantage of all the agencies and the services they provide, whether that's outpatient or inpatient, mental health, substance use, your church community, but that everyone's not alone, as much as we may feel it at times when we're in our houses. That there are ways to be able to reconnect with each other, and that we will get through this. Ultimately, this is a new experience, but it's not our last experience. We are going to come out the other end of this, and while things may look a lot different than they do now, it's going to be different. It's not going to be bad. So thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this, and appreciate everybody's time today.
And I would just like to wrap up and thank Commissioner Miller for inviting me to participate on this panel. And I've got some history with Ingalls and the South Suburban Council. I used to work at both those places, and I know you're doing a lot of great work at those places. So if you want to learn more about me and my practice, you can go to www.trueheightstx.com, and we are accepting new clients, and we have telehealth for now, but hopefully we'll get back to in-person sooner rather than later. So thanks again, Donna, and I'll give the mic off to Jen.
Thank you. Also, thank you to Commissioner Miller for pulling this panel together and the opportunity to speak. I'll also just echo that you're not alone. You're not alone in experiencing this, and you are not alone in wanting to connect with others right now. And so please give us a call. Feel free to reach out. You can reach us at 833-NAMI-CHI, NAMI-CHI. We'd love to connect with you and continue this conversation that's started here today, which has been so meaningful and so helpful. Thank you. Looks like I will turn over to Grace. And you'll just need to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me? Thank you, Commissioner Donna Miller, for being a leader and allowing God to use you, because we need you. We need leaders like you. We're all being tested right now, but you can't have a test without a testimony. And remember, your current situation is not your final destination. So we're going to get through this. If you need a captain, if someone is listening, if your aunt, your relative, or just your loved one, you need someone to pray with you, you can call our church, and that will be, if I think Commissioner Donner, you'll have the church information if someone needs to have prayer, but it's 773-918-0182. And I also will leave my email. I'll get back with you, but we're here to be with you, to hug you, a virtual hug, and to pray with you. Thank you so much for having me. And we are going to get with the funeral homes and the directors and the hospitals about this cremation immediately. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna, Commissioner Donna Miller. Thank you.
Yes, thanks so much.
Thank you. This has been wonderful.